From Michigan Production Alliance, I'm Barton Bund.
And I'm Mark Adler.
And this is another stay-at-home edition of In Frame. And Mark, we're doing a little mini side series here about safety and the new new guidelines that we're going to which continually unfold. Every day we're seeing new stuff. What's this week been like for new developments?
Well, we've heard about more jobs going on with Ford, with more educational work. So crews are out there. Crews are happening and we're going to introduce a guest in a little while that will tell us his take on work outside of the state. But it's going to be
our guest today. Sorry, our guest today, I should have mentioned, our guest today is Rick Shaw, and he's a stunt coordinator based out of Grand Rapids. And Rick's been able to observe some of the new changes, and it sounds like everybody's job just got quite a bit more complicated, just with the sanitizing, the cleaning, the handling of objects and one another, and just everything in the environment.
Right, and that's what we've talked about in our other series that I hope viewers will watch on the MPA YouTube channel. We talked about things like masking up, gloving up, the concept of pods, the concept of having to walk on set in an orderly row, getting temperatures taken, the idea that it's going to take more time. You're going to have your own PPE, all of these things going on. And, what does that mean going forward for us?
Well, to me, it sounds like it sounds expensive. For one thing, are people complaining about what this is all doing to budgets? I mean, because some of these supply the hours that are now required and the extra time on set and the budgets for every department have just increased. And how are people responding to that?
Right. We don't know those answers yet. Maybe Rick will give us some answers, but for now, we're just hearing about the guidelines that are being put forth, and they will be guidelines by the big studios, and each production will have their own, possibly, and each department will have their own, working together, with the existing umbrella of regulation guidelines. So we've just got to move forward with these. For example, the idea that me as an equipment owner, I'll have to somehow sanitize my gear, and I don't want to use wipes necessarily. So I'm looking into UVC methods of getting the bacteria off and sanitizing my gear. For trucks, it'll be very large UVC units. For sound, it might be small little easy bake ovens that, just kind of bake your lavalier microphones, and no one touches those except the talent. So those are the things that we're faced with right now.
A lot more UV light, it sounds like, but are those expensive, and are those attainable? Are those things that are on the market and we can gather and we can start using?
They are. I've got one ordered. It might be here at the end of this month. But for a truck, you need a very large one. For around talent, you can use a small one, something in the talent tent, for example, something that's going to be, beside pod one, which is primary camera. And then, talent, when they're off set, they can put their masks back on and stand here for a little while, and the UVC will bathe them in anti-bug juice, so to speak.
How effective are these things? Do we really depend on these things the way that we can with vaccines, medicines? These all sound a little bit. This doesn't sound 100% to me.
Well, they may be. I mean, there's real documentation of their effectiveness, but you have to understand how to use them.
Okay. And one thing I wanted to mention is that SAG sent out something yesterday that said, here productions are starting up. It is going to be the responsibility of the employer to keep up with all the regulations and all the policies when it comes to all this sanitation and cleanliness. But they wanted to reinforce to talent not to sign any waivers, holding the company harmless in case you do get sick. And I do want to figure out what's out there, and what are actors going to be comfortable asking for? What are actors going to be are actors comfortable enough speaking up? I want to make sure that people are understanding their rights. That's one of the big things.
Interesting point. We may have to find somebody that has expertise in that area to come on this.
It's brand new, like it's still brand new. And so we're going to have to, as we go along, I mean, what we're doing right now is talking to people who have been right out there on the front lines of production. And that includes folks who are dealing with these issues firsthand and can tell us kind of what it's like, how effective it is, because people are bound to make mistakes. The new production, people are bound to be reckless. There may be some people who don't even care about it.
Well, in point of fact, the glove issue, for example, that's a great way to get cross-contamination. If I touch you with my gloves, those gloves are contaminated. If I use them on something else, that's going to become contaminated. So it's basically, I can use a box of gloves in one day. My wife uses a box of gloves in one day. She has to itch her nose or something. She has to take a mask, new gloves. So for us, maybe it's just easier just to have hand washing stations all over the place, because that's the safest way.
Yeah, to use gloves as needed and to keep your hands. Boy, it's going to be a real adjustment for a lot of people. These habits are going to be a little hard to learn in some cases, and there's going to be a lot of trial and error. But we don't want that trial and error to happen on set. When we get to set, we want to be as perfect as we can.
Right. You're right. These regulations will have to settle in, and hopefully there'll be safety meetings where this will be discussed, just like we've always.
I saw a great image of a safety meeting and what that could look like, and it was a ton of people outdoors. Everybody was at least 6 feet or more apart. Everybody's masked, gloved. Everybody was out. It was out on a pier, and it was obviously this first AD getting out there and doing a safety meeting. And discussing all this stuff with people who looked, these people were prepared. These people were gloved and masked and everything like that. But it did not look like are any of these measures going to interfere? I mean, these measures are going to naturally interfere with some of the efficiency that happens on set. That's one of the hardest things is just the getting everything done in a day. And now we have added obstacles.
Well, something to keep in mind is that if you've ever worked in an operating room on a crew, and many of our guys have, you have to take certain, procedures to keep those in mind. So, right up to the bunny suit, wearing the complete hazmat suit. So that does slow you down, but it's something that's important.
Yeah. Well, should we bring out our guest today and begin to talk about some of these things that are happening on the ground?
Absolutely.
Rick Shaw, I'd like to welcome you to In Frame at Home. How are you, Rick? Rick's just coming on in a moment.
There we go.
There you are.
Hey, hello.
Good morning. Now, Rick, you've been a stunt coordinator and you've been a safety specialist on a couple of shoots. And what have you noticed in the changes lately? What's it been like for you?
Basically, it's what you brought up in the past has been the inner circle, and you want to run a minimal crew, but keep in mind when the actors are wearing masks. Soon, they say cut, put the mask on, but when you take it off, when the camera comes back on, then they got makeup coming in and hair because you're messing up the hair due to the mask. So it does slow you down. Now, as far as wearing, full suits and things of that nature, no, I think gloves and a mask is fine for crew. And then anything that's new that comes into the circle, we have to clean. You have to make sure it's safe, and the people that's in the circle have been checked out by the medic as far as temperatures, which everybody's been doing. Now, every state, every county is a little different. I shot last in Kentucky, and the way of doing things in Kentucky is a lot less stringent than what's going on here in Michigan. And so Michigan's actually probably one of the toughest states to be shooting in right now. And that's due to powers to be. So it's going to be a little different. But if you're shooting outside, that's a whole new element of headaches compared to shooting inside. Inside's controlled. You're in a studio. it's all controlled. You got controlled settings, and you know who's walking in and out of the door. If we're shooting somewhere and a bogey walks in and decide they want to see what's happening, then that can bring some problems. And we've had that. You know, I had to do some driving scenes, and cameras are moving, and vehicles are moving, and people's wandering in and out. But we had, you know, police officers trying to block and control everything, and that them themselves are wearing masks and gloves. You know, so and they should be.
What about Rick? Are you are you considered like you know, you're the stunt coordinator, you're the safety officer now? How does that? Is there a medic on set?
We do have medics. There's always a medic, and, you know, in a SAG agreement when there's, you know, when we're doing car sliding and things of that nature. But to put that on the shoulders of a medic, even though he's been trained, he's up on the laws and what's going on, to the situation could be, and I'm using this as a just as an example, if somebody were to get the virus and they come back and say, well, I got it during the production, and then who's responsible for that actor or that performer that's on that production? You know, is it the production company? Is it the medic because he didn't do his job? Are there waivers being signed? Yes, there is, and I agreed to do that. Probably not the best idea, but if you want to work, that's the way it's gonna have to occur.
Well, that's the choice that people are going to have right now is between working in an unsafe environment potentially, where they would take the responsibility and immunize they would relinquish the employer is not responsible for the outcome at that point. And I know a lot of people who would sign the waiver and take the job. I mean, I think most people would say, hey, I've got to do what I got to do right now.
Correct. What you're dealing with are the larger studios, which the larger studios don't enjoy the company of independent studios. So, and that's just business, and you understand how that goes, comes to be. But as a stunt coordinator, my safety concerns are under the first AD. He's got responsibility, and then it's me. Now, if the first AD doesn't quite understand everything, then I step in and I know that particular subject, and I'll take over the safety. And that happens a lot in the stunt world. So the first AD, and everybody standing around doesn't really understand the virus. We don't know exactly, other than what we're being told. And as the federal government, is trying to get it set up to where companies are not responsible for the employees. And that's something that they're working on passing. And regardless how long that lasts, we don't know. Did everybody on set wear masks? Yes, we did. Did we wear gloves? I did. Some did not. So, as far as all I can say is it's common sense, but sometimes there's people there that don't have common sense. I hate to say that, but, all I can say is keep your hands away from your face. And that's a hard thing to do when you're on set and the wind might be blowing, it's tickling your cheeks, and you reach up and you grab your face to get the hair out of the way, and then next thing you know, that could cause a problem. And again, if we've got, let's say a gun comes on set, as a stunt coordinator, the first thing I got to do is check it. And then it goes to the first AD, and then the first AD either hands it to the actor or I hand it to the actor, but between us, we work that out. We have to clean them now. We have to clean them regardless if it's plastic, rubber, made out of butter. We got to make sure that it's safe to go into the actor's hand. And then when it comes out of the actor's hand, it stays with me, the stunt coordinator or the weapons expert, in order to keep it clean and keep it safe.
And are you putting on the full hazmat, or what are you wearing on to set? What's your own protection?
I'm just wearing the mask. I wear a mask and I wear gloves. And then there's times when I'm driving, if I'm doing a drive-by in front of the camera, then the mask comes off and the gloves come off. So you don't want to see, blue, gloves on and the guy driving it. So my head's kind of back in the dark, yet my hands and stuff are still driving, or maybe the face is showing. So it depends.
How about distance? What's the aspect of distance like now that you're, especially for you who has to be in there? You're used to working a lot closer with people, I'm guessing.
Yes, and we still are. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't have a, you can't have a lens puller working next to your camera operator, and one's going to stop, move 6 feet back, and then the lens guy puts a lens on, and then the cameraman works, and then the lens guy backs out. So sound tied in with cameras and things. There's just times we're just on top of each other, and getting, power packs changed and things of that nature as far as the camera's concerned. So it's a situation where, do we stop, let the guy with the power pack to charge the camera and then reverse that, or do we come together and do it? If you watch every little, it's just not going to happen. It's a tough thing to do. We have so many reflexes in us that we've developed over the years to where we know we can just, this is what I got to do. I go over and I do it, and I don't think about it, but I don't think about the virus part of it. That should have been taken care of before we entered into the circle, and, if somebody isn't, maybe our direct, our DP or something, he doesn't want to be around anybody. So now what does that do? He may say, I want you 10 feet away from me, but now we got people handling cameras and equipment and going to the cars, coming back. Food was a big issue. Food's delivered. Our medic went over, took it out of the box or bag or whatever it came in, and then it was brought to the crew, and then the crew kept their gloves and did what they, corral. I mean, we went through that by the gallons, but I just didn't do it. And I'm probably one of the older guys on set, and that was a big concern. Do we have somebody that's 60 years old that's running the camera compared to the stunt guys 25, 30 years old?
Sure.
So it's still a virus. It still should be handled regardless of the age, but there is considerations that possibly the older guy might not be able to shake it like a young guy would. So we did talk about that. We did have safety meetings every day. And so it was something that very cautious. It's hard to keep your hands away from your face. It's just, I don't care who you are, it's going to happen. I just watched you touch your glasses 2 or 3 times. So you're on set, you know what I'm saying? And that's the danger of the virus on a movie set. And
Sure.
So we got actors, performing and possibly having to touch each other. And then we say, cut, the mask come on, but as soon as the mask come back off for the next shot, now we got to have makeup in there because they messed up their hair and smudged the makeup.
Sure.
So
what's the atmosphere like? I mean, like this sounds really, really, just the level of new detail and awareness sounds a little nerve-wracking, and it sounds like it's a tough adjustment for the creative process, and it's a tough communication, and is tough. You also mentioned that you have some people who just aren't doing it.
No, they're not. And we've had crew members that show up and they get checked out by the medic, no temperature, everything's safe, they look fine, and they won't wear nothing, and they'll just work.
What do you do with them? I mean, how can I personally wouldn't feel comfortable working around that person.
I watch them. I watch where they go, what they're doing. They report to me when they leave the set and they come back. Where have you been? Have you been to the grip truck? Have you been to the, we don't know. What have they touched? So a lot of times we don't let them out of the circle. We try to get all the equipment there ready. There was things that we used, which, sanitizing, that was something that, we use stuff from a restaurant, they spray on tables that sanitizes tables. Well, we use that when we ate tables there, and certain equipment can accept liquids, other equipment cannot. And, so people's hands are all over the camera, various hands. So that's something we have to watch what's going on. If you have no business getting involved with touching the camera, then don't touch it. Get away. Just like touching your face. Touch your face, come clean your hands, and then come back and we'll go again.
Concept been produced about using plastics, saran wrap type plastics, cling wraps that can go around boards and certain equipment, single use only, because they can't be wiped.
Right. And that's something that that has to be worked out, before filming. So is it more expensive? No, it's actually less expensive because you're running a minimal crew in order to get that shot. Does that make sense? I mean, why would I want an assistant to an assistant being there, or the second, to the AD. Why are they on set? Just give me the first AD, give me the stunt coordinator, the actors, and that's it. Minimal people to get the shot done. A lot of things that are occurring right now are pickup shots. There was a lot of things that just got slammed shut, got stopped, and now these production companies are trying to just do the minimal to get that completed because it's sitting there and they've already spent lots of money up to that point until it's shut off. And now we're just trying to run out and running around trying to get these things done. And it may change the story a bit, you know. So now we're looking at writers, but that's all off screen. You don't need executives on set. There's why, you know, just get the hands-on people that have to be there, and that's it. You know, if they want to come in on a Zoom call, which I try and stay away from now because I find myself, they want to do it all the time, and I'm walking around holding a computer so they can see what's happening, you know. So
well, those people do. I mean, you know, like I don't want to say, like, when I read some of the new guidelines and they were like, now producers and executives tend to stay, you know, are supposed to stay at a distance and they're supposed to stay on Skype or Zoom or something like that. But the fact is, you know, those people who are, you know, I mean, they want to, there's been a traditional sort of setup for how things get run, and are things going to be as consistent? Is the working process getting affected by these changes? It's bound to.
Yes, it does. It does. And I will say it's probably a little bit colder. You know, does that make sense? I mean, we're sending our dailies to the executive producer instead of the executive producer possibly being there. Most just depends on the you know, the project, you know. And what is occurring in Hollywood, and I lived out there for 10 years, and I talk to guys to this day. SAG and the studios are making it complex for a reason, because the studios are almost shut down. I mean, they're still doing interior stuff, but getting out, you know, and outside and doing things, they're just not doing. It's limited. So you're getting that information from them, but you're an independent, and that's something where you, as the boss of an independent film, better think it through. Yes, you can take the SAG information and use it to heart, but at the same time, you may have to make some adjustments to work for your project. You know, when I got contacted, there was a previous stunt coordinator, and they decided to shoot in Kentucky, and I brought in, and I get a call from SAG out of Chicago saying, hey, you know, need to go down and oversee the safety, you know, and why they're looking at stunt coordinators when it comes to the virus. They must figure we went out and read everything. Well, it's just common sense to say, hey, we treat it like a gun. You know, nobody touches the gun unless they have to. That'd be the actor, that'd be the first AD, and that's it. You know,
Sure.
so it's kind of the same with the virus. The virus is a gun. This is the safety meeting I gave. You have no business touching it. Don't touch it. I don't care if you're in my circle. Don't touch it. You know, so that just keeps things down, keep things clean. If I catch one of the crew members doing something out of line, touching something they shouldn't be touching, then I get on them a little bit. And I will raise my voice and say, go clean up. Now we got to re-sanitize because you weren't supposed to touch that. Now, they won't touch it. You know, they usually stay away from things unless they have to. And, you know, and that's where the safety comes from. So,
And
Now,
just
so you're the deputized. I'm sorry. You're the deputized new safety officer in general. How is that? I mean, that's made your job a whole lot more complicated and shifted
well,
a whole lot of responsibility over to you.
yes, there are times I've worked with actors that know me where they don't know the first AD, and so they trust me instead of the first AD they've never worked with before. And
Sure.
so what they do is say, hey, Rick, you know, keep my butt safe and keep me out of trouble, and that's my job. That's what I'm supposed to do. Even though, you know, they're the ones out blowing, flipping cars and everything else, it's still our job to keep everybody safe and oversee things. And as far as having a medic, medics are great. I mean, they have to do that, but, you know, God forbid, if somebody claims they've got the virus from a set that you've worked on, who's at fault? Who is at fault? Is it the medic because he was supposed to clear everybody to come on board? He can't, because there's an underlying thing. A carrier can carry it right on set without a temperature. You
Good
know,
point.
so now we've just hired somebody, or the production company has hired them Well, the production company is going to say, well, we didn't know. We didn't, who did he talk to or who did he touch before he came to the set? Maybe he carried it in there. We don't know. So if you're not willing to say, hey, I accept all this, I'm going to go ahead and work, then more than likely you will. But if you say, I'm not going to accept it, then you're not going to be working. How long is that's going to go on for? Lord knows. We don't know. I don't see things getting back to normal in any kind of way until spring of next year. So there's going to be a little project here. I did pick up a couple shots on a television show, and we're heading over to New Zealand. So it's a whole new world. What are we doing over there? Where are we at? Where are we going to be? I don't know. So it's a situation. I've heard studio and then outside. So it's a situation. Are you in LA, or are you in Detroit, or are you in Louisville, Kentucky? 3 different worlds there. LA's shutting down, Detroit's closed, Louisville's, hey, do it, let's make a movie. So it's something that that surrounding Ohio's a lot less than what we're going through here in Michigan. So
at what point would you say no? Like, at what point would you evaluate a project and just say no? I can't. They don't have everything. I mean, are you willing to turn down a job? You yourself?
Sure, I'm willing to, because I can look at the script, I can break it down, and I can look at the amount. And I'll ask, how many people are we having for this shot? I take the scene description, I read it, I look at it, and then I ask the first AD, how many people is going to be involved with that shot for that day? If they say 4, and I know it's going to take 9, then I might say, we're going to be running the whole time like this. The whole production might be way understaffed, and we only got 22 days to shoot it. Well, then I've got to turn around and say they ain't gonna get done in 22 days, and that's already happened. And so it's because of the safety measures, and you got a medic jumping up and down screaming that this, we can't do it this way because it's not safe, but we got to come back and do it the safe way. Well, other guys are like, you know what, let's just go ahead and do it. And so that's the problem you get into. Is you got to look at the personnel. A lot of times I don't know the personnel. I'll walk in out of the blue. I worked in Philly, I think back in October. I walked in on set and did a very dangerous stunt, but I knew no one. And so you got to rely on your safety teams, to make sure they're doing what to do.
The AD, we lost a good AD this year, Larry Lerner. You might have met him.
I know Larry very well. Worked with Larry. Yes.
Yeah, lost him last month, and I was so sad to hear it. But he told me a couple of years ago that ADs are always the first line of defense, whatever it is. Right. And or someone you have to listen to, you have to trust.
Right. And I worked with Larry many times over the many years ago, and then we worked on Perfectly Prudence up in Grand Rapids. And Larry called me in, and and I did. I trusted Larry with my life, so I trusted him. But that's what some of the things that we're going to get into as an actor going into a crew you don't know. Well, they're talking all the safety measures, but you visually better be looking for it and making sure that it's happening, because they may talk in the beginning, but once you get on set, it may all change because people's running around. You know how it gets very hectic, and equipment's in and out. And so we got a stunt coordinator maybe stretched too thin. We can't keep up with everything. And so am I looking at my medic? Am I looking at my first AD? Who else can I look at, to oversee while I'm gone? If I run to the restroom and come back, and that's a whole other issue right there,
Oh, yeah.
Stop. One, if you're running a 5-man crew and one goes to the bathroom, you just lost, a big chunk of your team until they get back. So what have they done? So I don't care what they've done once they're in the bathroom. It's just how they deal with things when they came out of. If they're Johnny on the spots, those are scary. I mean, that and you're going to get into that possibly this summer. So porta potties and things of that nature. I mean, you're dealing with a nightmare. And
opposed to the executive ones, right?
Right. And, now there's personalized campers and things of that nature, but you've still got people in and out. You got makeup artists, you've got, assistance and things, which may be needed. The actor may ask for an assistant, a personal assistant. You may not be getting one, Mr. Whoever, and that's too bad, because that's just another eye that we have to keep an eye on in order to keep everybody safe.
Sure.
If you needed to take it up the chain, if you needed to say, hey, there's something really, really unsafe going on here, what would you do? Are you able to refer to somebody else?
I always have the phone number and direct line to the executive producer or the producers. If they're not on set, then I will, say, hey, and I have run into that a couple times, where it just wasn't safe. Running a low budget SAG agreement where the below line, the crew is non-union, where the above line is union, so, and those happen quite a bit. So it's a situation where I have to contact somebody to say, this isn't right, and they're not going to listen to me until you say something, so, and they do. They usually will call down and say, you know what, you need to follow what he's saying, and that's it. The virus issue, I think as we get further into the summer, I think that's kind of going to be something that's going to kind of slowly fall away as we get more and more comfortable with things. I wouldn't drop the ball, though. Do not think it's over, until we know for sure that it's over. And you should treat all sets like there is that virus running around on set.
Absolutely.
Don't give up.
Yeah, we don't want it back.
Right. We don't want it back. And you just got to be careful. Just be conscious of, what you're touching and your face and the equipment and, door handles and gas cans and, things of that nature. It may not have been checked out, but if you got gloves on and then somebody goes and gets gas, comes back, and, they've touched the gas pump at the gas station, which had thousands of hands on it, and then they didn't wear gloves, and they bring the gas back for your generator. Then we got a situation, how many hands got to that generator or got to that gas can?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got a very hands-on industry, man. I mean, we've got to, this is a business of, this is getting in, we're all in there together. So we've got to be,
right.
Man, you're right there on the front lines, and my hat's off to you. I'm very, very grateful to you for coming down and filling us in on this. I wish that I could say I feel better having talked to you, but I still feel like we're still in the transition.
You know what? And you should not feel better. You should not be at ease. I mean, you should be.
Right.
I expect a little
alert.
fear.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a good thing. If you get to the point you're not afraid, you're not scared, that's probably
Something's
when
wrong.
you're going to get that something's wrong. You're going to get hurt.
Well, man, we're in a crazy time right now, but you're out there handling it. And you're providing some much needed perspective for us. So I really, really appreciate what you're doing out there, Rick.
That's it. Well, thank you, and just
Rick.
touch your face. That's all I can
I know. Now I'm all even at home, I'm like, hey, I can't do that. But folks, for this and more, we're keeping up on this as much as we can because we want to promote and spread the awareness. We want to get people safe. We want to keep people safe, and we want to keep everybody aware. So for this and more, head down to mpami.org. Check out our Facebook posts. We are keeping things as up to date as we possibly can. And so far, we've had a good response from people who support these measures. But when it comes to actually doing them, that's a whole nother set of, we're all experiencing a steep learning curve right now. And so I really appreciate your insight.
Yeah. So
Thank
keep watch on our group page on Facebook and on our YouTube channel. There'll be links on both to go either way. So thank you very much, everybody, for watching.